Afternoon and welcome to today's episode of Challenges in the Street, where we're live from the ECC, wishing to talk about communications process and how that all relates with company level operations. So Battalion Chief Mark Davis here is normal. If you are a certified chief officer wishing to receive COPDI credit, make sure that you sign in with your fire service ID and your name, both now and then at the end, and Chief Thomas will get that credited to your account. So I'm Brady Miller today, right? So Captain Miller, I'm going to be filling in for him as well today during this operation. He got injured on a house fire in Prince George's County, waiting for him to get back to duty. He should be back soon, but I'm him today. So what else I got? Let's talk about the house fire in Company 14's area. So if you don't mind popping the photo up from Bellsville Road. I'm sure a number of folks were on that call. Pretty sure this happened on Saturday. I was listening to it over the internet from about Chattanooga to south of Birmingham. Looking at pictures and talking to some folks. I know that a lot of hard work was done, right? So we've talked about this a little bit. A lot of hard work was done. It was a complicated scenario, large house, well-advanced fire, significant wind conditions, and, oh, by the way off the road in our non-hydrogen areas. So I had the opportunity to listen to it some, and I saw a bunch of photos of it, and we know that a lot of work got done. That was a campaign event, right, for a long time. And so out of this, we don't have these type of events too often, especially in our non-hydrogen area. So right, Chief Bailey has commissioned a report afterwards, significant incident report. So we look forward to see what kind of lessons learned come out of that operation. Combination of a bunch of stuff, right? Relay pumping and tanker operations and interior attack and defensive operations and just all kinds of things going on. So we look forward to learning from that incident, but wanted to take a minute just to recognize the folks that worked hard that day, right? Because a lot of time was spent there at that operation. So that being said, I'd like to introduce the program here from ECC today, and it is titled ECC, right? Communications and the involvement with the company level officer. And there's a lot of stuff that goes on here that you just don't see on the other end of that microphone. So we asked the folks to put stuff together, and with me today I have Lieutenant Maria Brown, and she's going to introduce the rest of the folks from ECC. If you have questions, feel free to type in on the YouTube chat. You can send an email to me if you want. Chief Thomas is here monitoring the chat, and we'll try to get those questions in. One other point, right? We did allow 90 minutes for this episode, thinking that we may go over the 60. So if you're just sitting down, please allow 90 minutes for the episode. Lieutenant?
Thank you. So good afternoon, everybody. I'm Lieutenant Maria Brown. I am joined with Captain John Vernelson and firefighter Troy Nolan, both on the A shift here. So kind of our format is we're going to do some videos that we worked with C shift to kind of go over some topics, and then we also have a slideshow. And then towards the end, we're going to go over some questions that were submitted to Captain Brady Miller. Then we're also going to go over some questions. If Chief Thomas gets those, he can stop us in the middle or whenever he thinks it's appropriate. And we're going to talk about where the feedback form is listed on quick links. And I think that is it. Do you gentlemen want to say hi or?
Hello.
Hi.
So
we have, go ahead and
Yep.
introduce them.
Sure.
They might not, all they know is their voice, right?
Yes.
Pick up the phone and who the heck am I
Right.
talking to?
So I'm firefighter Nolan.
And I'm John Vernelson, captain on A shift.
What shift are you on, Troy?
A shift. A shift.
Yes. So both these gentlemen have been here for quite a while. But to get our nerves out, why don't we go straight to our video to talk about 7 Alpha 2.
Welcome to the Communications Center. I'm going to go over basically what we see at the communications and how we dispatch a 911 call and get it out to you guys in the field, and the different monitors that we use to process such. When a call comes in from 911, when a call comes in from a mutual aid or a police station, it will show up in our pending queue, such as this call here. The 7 Alpha 2 operator is going to pull up the call, and they're going to see a screen very close to this. It is going to give recommended units for us to use on the call. And the Alpha 2 operator is going to select the units that they want to go on this call. This is a trouble breathing ALS1 call, so we have to fill the ALS1 complement, which includes a ALS unit and a transport unit, and the required manpower that is needed for an ALS call. So once the units are selected, we drop it into our active events list. While that is being dropped, it is setting off the station alerting. Once the units are dropped into our active events unit, like I said, the station alerting is going off, and you're hearing in your station the address and the whole talk over. Once that is complete, we get a notification down here that your alerts have been completed, and we know that we're allowed to talk. And that is when you get your first initial dispatch vocal from the 7 Alpha 2 operator giving the information. And it's a very specific information in the way that we do it, in the sequence of we have to give the commonplace name, if there is one, the address, the location inside the address if there is, such as an apartment or out in front or whatever it may be, the nature of the call, the units that we've dispatched, the channel that you are supposed to switch to, 7 Alpha 1, and the box area. And it is specifically in that sequence every single time we dispatch. All of this is our active events calls that we have currently going on in the county. Amy, can you please preempt the 8 units? All of these are our active events in the county. As you can see, here was the event that I dropped here for our 8 units. And this is when now everything is handed over to our 7 Alpha 1 operator. From there, they are basically the babysitters of the county. They are monitoring each and every one of these calls. One person is. And they are checking your en route times, your on-scene times, how long it takes you to get to the hospital. We have statuses for each one of those timer statuses. So approximately 10 minutes it should take a unit to get to a call. We get a little timer alert that says, hey, that unit's not on scene yet. So we're preempted to check on the unit. We can see, as long as everything is working properly, where the units are in reference to the county. We have a command where we can pull that up. And I can tell right where that unit is in the county. So a lot of times when we're asking you or your status, we already kind of know. We're just kind of checking with you and making sure everything's okay. When you're on scene, you're giving an approximate timer of 20 minutes. That's when we get the checking your welfare. It's not going to be that way for every single call. We know that some calls take longer than others. It's just a general idea of how long. It's more for the safety of the units, making sure that everything is okay on the scene. Same thing when you transport to the hospital. We're giving you about 20 minutes to get to a hospital. Just making sure you're actually arriving at the hospital. Once again, we can use our command to check on the unit and make sure you're there. And a lot of times we'll leave you alone if we can see that you're at the hospital. You're given about an hour at the hospital, and then once again we're checking on you just to make sure everything's okay, and we are putting the units back into service so we can better serve this county again. So this is our status monitors of every single unit that is logged into the county and what they are doing as far as if they're available on radio, available in quarters, if they're on details, whatever it may be. We can pull up each individual unit on their own and see exactly what the history of that unit is and what they have done for the day as well. Our radio system over here is every single channel that operates in the county. We have the ability to switch positions. So if I am sitting at this CAD station, I have the ability to be the 7 Alpha 1, 7 Alpha 2, TAC channel, whatever is needed. It's just a simple click of the buttons, and I can change my entire radio console for that. And then our final major monitor is our phones. This is our phone system here. We have it set up so that any phone number that we would need in the county, we can click on and find. Unfortunately, it doesn't always work the best, and we do have problems with certain numbers, especially when you guys call in. We can't tell who exactly is calling. So a lot of times when a station calls in, they're assuming that we know who you are. Unfortunately, with the system, we don't. But we can get you just about any number that you would possibly need or any resource that you would need in the county based off of that phone system.
Hey, real quick, before you go over the highlights, that if you're watching from a station with a group of folks, if you don't mind typing that in and letting us know, right? It helps us keep track of stuff. So that's 7 Alpha 2, right?
Yes. Yep. So just kind of moving on and to just touch on what Firefighter Blocker was just kind of talking about our, when you guys call into us, so if it's station 25 calling into ECC, we'll answer the phone with the variation of Fire Rescue Communications, Lieutenant Brown, this line is recorded. The only problem is I don't know who is calling me because we do not know that it's station 25 saying they need to go on a detail for whatever it is. They need to go to Fromm's. They're coming up to do an In the Streets program. We do not have that information coming in. So it's really...
I got a question. So
Sure.
they disconnected the red lines, right? I mean, you still have the red line, but you don't know what that is.
We don't have caller ID
Right, we do not have caller ID.
like we
Nope.
did in the past.
I didn't know that. So it's
No.
even in my office, right? If I pick that up, you have no idea it's
No.
Battalion 701 call.
Correct.
Just as somebody's calling you from a firehouse.
It,
Yes?
Right.
it comes in on a station POL line.
I got you.
So it could be Pepco, it could be Station 1, it could be anybody. So
I already
So-
learned something. We can go home.
we'll
Okay, we're out.
so we dispatch a call, and they're going to take the rescue squad instead of the engine.
I got you.
So when they call, they have to tell us this is Station 3. We're going to take the rescue squad instead of the engine. If they say, hey, we're taking the squad on that call, we have no idea what call they're talking about.
Is that the same reason why Domino's calls up our phone lines?
Could
The
be.
I don't know.
Delivery
Maybe.
person, right? It's the same line. I got you.
Yeah.
Okay.
So just listed are the business line 240-773-4700, and then if you would need to call the supervisor direct 240-683-6510. Just to reiterate about the Sonam phone is really for just when the primary lines are out of service because that line is not recorded.
Oh, and to add on that, if you ever need to tell a building maintenance person to put the alarm out of service, it's 6520 instead of 6510. We get that phone call a lot. What's the alarm out of service number?
So obviously for best practice to call, usually it's the officer if they want to talk about something that in relation to a call they just ran versus having the ambulance calling to ask why they were just dispatched to a call. It definitely should be the station officer if there's a concern. So we don't know who's calling unless you give us your name, station, all that good information. All calls in and out of ECC are recorded. And then, Troy, do you want to talk about Cad-to-cad?
Sure. So a couple years ago, several jurisdictions, including Montgomery County, Fairfax, Loudoun, and Prince George's. What is Cad-to-cad? Cad-to-cad is basically one CAD communicating with the other. So what happens during Cad-to-cad is if Prince George's County needs a unit from Montgomery County, all the times they're live. There's no more calling on the phone or a mutual aid channel. We've gotten away from that. Not all the counties, as you can see, DC, Frederick, and Howard, Carroll County, we still have to either call them landline or they call us landline
Or they use the radio.
Or they use the radio, mutual aid radio. There's some things like if Prince George's County needs a unit from Montgomery County, we don't just dispatch it. We have to take some things into consideration. How busy we are, it depends on how busy we are. The supervisor, he might say, hey, no, reject that call. So there's things that we have to take into consideration prior to dispatching. We don't delay the call, but it's just something that we have to take into consideration. So it's pretty much live, Cad-to-cad, just communicating with each other.
How does it fall in our queue? Right,
So-
does it get a lower priority regardless of what it is, or is it now queued the same as if they have an ALS call, if we have an ALS call, and it's not competing units, right? You got one in Cabin John and somebody going to Beltsville. Beltsville came in first. They go first in the queue or not?
Well,
Go ahead.
there's MAALS, which is a higher priority than a MAR, Mutual Aid Rescue, which is
Gotcha.
a BLS response. The MAALS is going to get, I think it's a priority 3 response,
Gotcha.
whereas an MAR is like a priority 5.
And is that
So,
true for
And that'll drop in first.
all mutual aid, regardless of whether you're going Frederick or Fairfax or PG?
Mhm.
Gotcha.
Mutual Aid Full, that's another priority 3 response, so that'll fall in
Gotcha.
first. It'll be on top of the BLS call. So what I'd like to, for the Cad-to-cad, I would love to see what PG is seeing, because that would make my job a lot easier, determining if I'm going to send this call or not. See, when they send over ambulance 712,
Right.
I don't know if paramedic ambulance 841 is literally either closer or a few seconds behind. That would make my decisions a lot easier.
You don't see
but
the-
I don't see what they see.
I gotcha.
I just see what they dispatch.
But we see their units, and meaning AVL, right? Our CAD sees them, and as
Correct.
long as our
Yes.
unit's AVL is working, right?
Correct.
And it's tied to your MDC, or is that something?
Not-
separate?
I'm not
I don't know either, right?
Well, for example, we had a call on Balfour Drive. It was PG 44's area, and they requested, I think, Medic 712. So I just, out of curiosity, I did a follow unit on Medic 844, and I saw them driving down, I think it was Sergeant Road. So I called over there and said, hey, you have Medic 844 in service? And they said, well, we got them stationed at the hospital. I'm like, you might want to check on them because they're back in their first due.
Gotcha. Right.
So they ended up, by the time they called them, Medic 712 was literally pulling up on the scene. But
Right. Okay.
but yeah, we can see where the PG units are as well.
We've noticed lately, and this is true for everybody, right? going to PG, right, you now see the unit string. It's at the bottom of that MDT, right? So you got to scroll down. The big problem was you didn't know what your running order was, right? So like, when it populated, you would see like a truck and an engine, and you're like, well, that doesn't match us. But then now, when you go to the bottom of that, once the call's been dispatched, you see your running order there.
There was a CAD update, I want to say, when was that? 4 months ago, maybe?
4 months ago.
They did a CAD update, which now puts that running order in automatically.
Is that true going to Fairfax too? Do you know, or not? I don't know
We
much
don't
about
run
it.
very often to
Right.
Fairfax, so
Definitely
I don't.
not full
I don't-
assignments.
I've never seen that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because obviously if it's not Cad-to-cad, if it's Frederick, Carroll, or Howard, we have to manually, put in what the units are. Usually they are good telling us which,
We also
second
need-
special service.
We also need to let them know on the radio
Right.
what they are.
Gotcha.
Because as soon as they come up en route, they'll come up on our 7 Alpha 1 and say, we're responding to Carroll Avenue. Where are we doing the running order? But we're supposed to reach out to them and tell them.
Right.
Yep.
I had another question. Keep going.
Okay, now we're going to go to 7 Alpha 1 video.
This is our 7 Alpha 1 operator right now. 7 Alpha 1 operator right now, which is Firefighter Johnson. He is in charge of any active event that is currently going on in the county. He is pulling up each individual call, checking the times on the units, checking the statuses, reading over any information that is in the call, and making sure that it is relayed to the units if necessary.
Paramedic indicating 731 ambulance 753 responding heart problems ALS1.
He's also giving his second vocals on the calls to make sure that any unit that is just newly assigned to a call is getting that call, that they're going en route, that they are getting their second vocal as to where they're going and what they're going for. It can be probably the busiest position to sit at in the county at times. Even though there's not a ton of calls sitting there right now, he is constantly reviewing, overlooking them, making sure that he isn't missing any information, making sure that all unit statuses are correct, making sure that the hospital statuses are correct. One thing new with the new MDTs, where we have the new hospital updates with the drop-down bar, it's a drop-down bar. Use the drop-down bar, select your hospital. Don't get fancy and type it in or anything like that, because what that is it is a way for the EMS division to now monitor where our units are going in the county. So they are using that data. If that data is entered in wrong, they cannot utilize that data. So we have to go back through and constantly change the hospital statuses. Like you see here, there's a whole drop-down list just like it is on your MDTs, and we have to determine, based off of whatever kind of sign language you're putting into that call, where it is that you're actually transporting to, and change that information. So it's actually a really important thing that you guys use that drop-down and pick the hospitals that you're going to, especially with all of the other stuff that he has to do. We went over the timers in the call. You can see he's got certain timers that are up right now. For instance, Medic 701 is showing up yellow. It's because they are over their en route time. So it's something that he needs to check on. He can do that several different ways. He can use the command to find them on his map system, as long as, like I said, everything is working correctly, and he can see where they are. As of right now, he can tell that they are on the scene. So with that, it's kind of like a double verification that he knows that that unit is on the scene, so we don't have to bug you as much.
And in this particular one, they were staging, so I'm just going to put a message for the police dispatcher and ask them if the scene's secure for us yet.
Yeah, so that's another thing he's doing. He can also talk back to the police for you guys on that instance. Like he said, the scene was not secure, so that is why they still have that en route time. It prompts him to check with the police and try to get you guys a better information as to whether or not the scene is secure or not. He also has a timer at the bottom, the red one. That's the timer I was talking about with being at the hospital too long. Again, we tend to leave you alone as long as we know you're still there. We start to question when the unit is driving down the street, and we can actively see that.
Okay, probably not 712. And well, 712 may go on search.
Again, we don't really care what you're doing, but if there's calls, you know, coming in and it's a busy day, it's nice to know that we have you available if needed. So this is our
Okay, we're back. We were going to start talking about bidding, but you want to go back?
Well, so that was 7 Alpha 1, right?
Yes.
So we saw 7 Alpha 2, which is our primary. So here's
Dispatch.
another
Yes.
another random one, right? So why do we dispatch on 2 and not 1, right? Because I realize it's probably a regional thing, but can somebody share that with us? Because Prince George's just switched also, right?
Right.
Do you know?
So the way it was explained to me, if you, on your channel selector on your portable, if you go back one click to 7 Alpha 1, you're going to get a dispatcher,
A human.
a human.
Gotcha.
If you go all the way to the right, you're also going to get a human.
Gotcha.
A Dallas slip, he'd be the best one to answer this question, but
He's on, so maybe he'll hop in on the chat.
so there was something, if we dispatch on Alpha 1, I think Dallas wanted, if you were in trouble,
Yeah.
you could go either way on your channel selector and get somebody. I think that was the reason.
And probably not not interrupting a dispatch, right? Because one of the things you don't know, if I just turn my radio on right now, one of the things I don't know is, and I go to Alpha 2, I don't know if a call is being dispatched, right? I don't. And prior to some of this, pager tones and all that stuff would be going out, right? Whereas on the Alpha 1, well, you're not going to interrupt a dispatch.
Right. Yep.
So I had another Cad-to-cad question. I think this also is important for folks who run mutual aid non-Prince George's County. So talk about Frederick and Howard and Carroll. So that call there is no electronic signal. There's no computer screen. There's no nothing sent, right? It's on a phone or over radio. So at your center, what are people doing? Typing, listening, right? So I'm just thinking about, hey, spelling right. Whoop, that was a killer. Don't put these things in front of you. Spelling, street spelling, box area, right? So just give us a rundown of what happens there. Taking a call from Frederick.
So basically, there's a TAC group operator. So if I'm on the TAC channel, I'm listening to various channels, including mutual aid. And when the call comes in, like Frederick to Montgomery, calling for your paramedic rescue engine 709, I'll look on my status screen. Or if they're available, I'll say they're available, and then I'm ready to type. They'll give the information, and as they're giving the information, I'm typing that information in manually, versus where Cad-to-cad, everything is live.
Yeah.
That's pretty much the big difference there. So
With with Frederick, they're patching the North Mutual Aid channel into their dispatch channel, so they're dispatching their call. So we're listening it in real time as they're dispatching the call. So and we have to type in. So there's a couple times where we couldn't get the spelling straight on a street, so we would have to. We have to call them, or I've went to Google and I put in the numbers and the first 3 letters of the street, and boom, pops right up, and that's how we get the street name sometimes. So
yeah.
Thought I had another one, but go ahead.
Okay.
Keep going.
Sure.
So 7 Alpha 2, 7 Alpha 1.
Yep.
Pretty key roles, right? That's who we normally hear.
Right.
Absolutely.
Ambulance, right? Command officer, whatever, right?
Yeah.
How often throughout the day does that change? Meaning the person at the end of that mic.
We kind of rotate every 3 hours. During the COVID period, when we were, each position. Each position is unique. We can operate. Each position can operate and do the same thing. Each CAD
I
set
see.
up.
Each workstation.
So each workstation, I can move to 7 Alpha 1 and do the same thing.
So you're not running down the corner, around the
Right.
corner in a different
Right.
carousel.
Right.
Whatever you call that, corral. Huh?
Right. So, but before the COVID, we were literally physically getting up and rotating around. But since the COVID, when COVID hit, we just stay at our one console and, okay, it's time to switch, and we'll switch channels and
Which one you like to work the best?
tack. less work, less talking.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
All right. Continue on.
So anyway, now we're just Captain Nelson's going to touch base a little bit on units bidding on EMS calls, full assignments, and that kind of information.
So that's an
Yeah.
important topic.
Yes.
Yeah, so certainly if you think you're closer than a unit that was dispatched, come up on 7 Alpha 1 and say we're closer than ambulance 701, we'll take the call and we will gladly make that switch. Don't ask us if we're closer than such and such, because we can see them on the map, but that's hard to determine if everything is equal. AVL says who's
pick the right
who's
one.
closer,
Right.
who's picked the right one. That goes down to the second.
And I guess at first, right, a lot of folks were skeptical of AVL, but now that we've been into it for a while, right, seems to be pretty darn on the mark, right?
Mm-hmm. So the funny story about that. So when the AVL first went in service, we were all skeptical about this thing.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a house fire in 18's area off of Kent Mill Road, and you were on this call. So
Company officer.
Hey.
I forgot the name of this. It was off Kent Mill Road, and I remember, I think the engine from 18 was second due, and the tower wasn't even due at all. They went anyway, but that's another story. But when the call was over, I was curious to find out how this happened. So I went back and looked at the unit recommendations, and sure enough, truck 712 was like a minute closer than Tower 18. I'm like, how can that be? That just doesn't make any sense to me. So then Maria was on truck 712, and I called her later and said, hey, just out of curiosity, where were you when that house fire was dispatched? And she said, we were on the air. We were literally pulling into station 24. And that made a lot of sense.
Yep.
Because it was truck 716 and then truck 712 were the first two trucks. And that's when it kind of hit home. I was like, oh, maybe this program does work as advertised. Mm-hmm. So I will say, if the running routes are correct, and I think a lot of them had to be fixed, but when it's working properly, it's pretty spot on.
Yeah, I was so skeptical, I drove myself to Skaggsville, right, in the battalion car just to see, and I called us, hey, where am I at? And they were like, well, you're right here, exactly. I'm like, okay.
Right.
So they do know where I'm at.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that was early on. So.
Yeah. And we had an oven, the same day, we had an oven fire in 19's area off of, I think it was Dexter Avenue. They weren't even due. From 19 wasn't even due. It was 516 and Rescue Squad 742. And if you looked on AVL, they were both 5 and 16 were on the air, and they were like close to 19's area. So 19 wasn't even due. It was, change is difficult for people, and there was a lot of skepticism at first. But I think now, if it's working properly, then it's pretty spot on.
All right. So let's talk about, am I closer further, right?
Am I closer? Well, if you're bidding, then you should know you're closer. That's the bottom line. If
We
you're
do
gonna
hear
bid
that a
on
fair
call-
amount, like on stations with multiple EMS units, like they're trying to maybe share that workload a little bit, right? I guess if it's a low acuity call, it's probably not a big deal, right? You ever tell them no, or?
Yeah, there's a few times, units come up bidding and said, we're closer than so-and-so, and they're like, no, we know you're not.
Gotcha.
You're not even in the ballpark, so we'll say no. But now the full assignment thing, we know that chiefs such as Chief Davis
Right.
has very strict rules
Fine
about
line.
bidding.
That's right.
So if
But you know that's a function of where you're located, right? So you got to realize my home is in a very dense area, right? I assemble a box alarm probably less than 7 minutes. Everybody, I might be the last one arriving, right? So when you're messing with somebody's water supply, they've already got that planned out. They already know which way they're coming in. They already got that planned out. And when you start messing with that, and if it's a fire, you're going to go one way or the other. That can be very different up county, right? So if 35's tower comes available, we don't have a lot of ladder trucks in the upper end of the county. Battalion 705 may very easily say, yeah, add them, drop somebody else. Drop 731, right, going to Damascus, put 35 on it. Down county, I'm saying, nope, keep it as it is, because you're not going to mess up my company officers' plans or what they're going to do. And if it's on fire, you're going to be there. So.
So we have units that come up and say, we're clear of our medical call, put us on the box. And we tell them to go to 7 Alpha 4 and bid with the battalion chief. And then the battalion chief will decide whether or not, you will decide whether or not they go on the box. A good reminder for the command officers, if you do allow a unit to go on the box, then you need to then tell them what due they are in the running order. So we've had command officers, they'll say, add engine 701 to the box and then update the running order. Well, we don't know what the new running order is.
Right, what you can add them. in
Right,
there.
are they,
Yeah.
are
right.
you?
So I should say add 701 as second due engine.
Yes, we need to
right?
know
And then
that
you would
before
make
we
that,
update
right.
the running order. But we also know there's, like, there was a 2-alarm fire in Eights area, I guess it was about a month ago, Carousel Court. And the engine cleared a medical call right near there. So I knew that, I think the officer said, put us on the box. And we're like, look, we know you're going to get there first arriving, but you still need to go to Alpha 4 and bid with the battalion chief.
Gotcha.
Now, I don't think he got a hold of the battalion chief. They were there so quick, but he did the right thing. I would have done the same thing. I would have responded and then dealt with the consequences later. So he did the right thing. But just know that we need to refer you to the first due battalion chief.
Okay.
Good.
A lot of good, I'm not going to bring it up, a lot of good discussion going on the chat. So a lot of folks answering some questions, but you're good. Keep going.
And I think we're going to go to the video talking about the supervisor
Supervisor role.
role.
All right, I'm Master Firefighter Kitzmiller, C-Shift Dispatch Supervisor, and I'm here to show you some of the supervisory roles that I do as the dispatch supervisor. So, for instance, a call drops into pending. First thing I do is open up the call, verify the address. This one happens to be a McDonald's. I'm looking at my map to verify the address, to see if the patient's located inside or outside, what the call type is, and to make sure that we have the appropriate resources responding. Also, I could go into the person's tab, identify the caller, and via that caller I can pull up Rapid SOS to confirm that that's the location that the individual is calling from, to make sure there's no conflicting information. So this particular call is just a basic call with police for an MO, and the scene is secured. Police are on the scene of this call.
We're back. You guys want to talk about timers a little bit?
Well, let's talk about that supervisor position. Right?
Sure.
So how does that get picked? during the day, right? So I know I tell staff you see that, but it's like, hey, and I know, right, we, at the command level officer, at the command officer level, right, we kind of know, or can monitor who the supervisor is, but how does that get picked through the course of the day, right? So if you three are working tonight, who's the supervisor? The
So
ranking
usually-
person, the regular person, hey, we take turns, rock, paper, scissors?
So we have 2 officers and 2 masters working, or sometimes it's a captain, 2 lieutenants, and a master. We have four supervisors on the shift. Usually the highest ranking officer is the fire floor supervisor. They're the police liaison. They're looking at the big picture, resource management, that sort of thing. And then the master, or if I'm on the floor, the lieutenant will be in the corral as the dispatch supervisor.
So when
There.
we watched that tape, that was a master firefighter. So other folks were rest time, PT time?
PT, yeah, we're on.
Doing something?
There's 2 on PT
Gotcha.
at any one time during the day, and then at night we drop down to 4. So we have a fire floor supervisor, and then we have a dispatch corral supervisor that acts as the tactical talk group operator, answers phones, and then Alpha 1, Alpha 2.
Gotcha.
So like tonight we have a lieutenant who's sleeping 19 to 01, and then I'm up till 01 and go down till 07.
Gotcha.
So I'm with another master firefighter. So
So when any one of us in the field pick up the phones, they'd like to talk to the supervisor. There's only one of them, right? That's that appointed person at that time.
the fire floor supervisor, that's the highest ranking person at that particular moment.
What else does that person do? Anything else?
Well, it's really I mean, I'm sometimes walking over to the call take corral to get more information about a call. I'm talking to the police supervisors about a dual response between us and them. I'm looking at resources like if we get 15, 20 plus transport units committed.
Gotcha.
I mean, I'm looking
You
at.
talk to the doc, right? You communicate with the
Yeah,
doc
talk to the
throughout
doc.
day.
Yep.
What about
The PIO.
when they do like blue alert and all that kind of stuff? Who makes that call?
That's the EMS duty officer.
But they go through you to make the announcement. Yeah. Tell you what to say and all that, right?
Yeah.
Right. They'll call up on the the red phone or something, and hey, look, this hospital's on blue alert. I need you to make that announcement, and it'll get either 7 Alpha 1 or 7 Alpha 2 operator will simulcast on both channels so that we don't just to time consuming just to so. So the EMS duty officer is pretty much advises us when it's when the hospitals are on blue alert.
Who has ultimate authority?
On the floor, the highest ranking person.
Yeah.
Even if they're not on their floor?
Good question.
I don't know, right? I like to know, like, hey, so who is, who's the dude that's going to be
Yeah, I
in
mean-
most trouble if something bad happens?
If I'm on PT, I still have my eyes and ears open.
Yeah.
So if we get a major event, a 2-alarm fire or something, then they'll call me and I'll come back on the floor and
Gotcha.
assist with resource management and all that.
All right.
Cool. Can we go to our first question?
So let's preface this from the field, right? These are questions that were.
No, I'm sorry. This is
Okay.
one of the videos that
Oh,
we're
yeah,
answering one of the questions.
Gotcha.
Want Ben to come in here to talk about active time? Okay.
As far as an MDC goes, there is a status next to every single unit that tells us whether or not you have an MDT, whether it is not responding or whether it is not active at all. So we can kind of get a good update as far as that goes just off of this screen alone. It's not always completely accurate, but for the most part, we can tell whether or not you're responding to us just based off of that. As far as the station alerting goes, that actually is a completely different monitor that we only have one of that is across the way. As I pointed out earlier, we do have a little notification here that tells us that the alerting went through, but the main computer sits over here, and it has a time tick down calendar that tells us when the alerting is done, and it also gives us big notifications whether or not the station alerting went off or if there's a problem. If you open your printer, we know. If the front doorbell rings, we can click on it and we can see who's sitting at your front door.
Interesting.
Okay. Do we have a question to answer, or?
Let's grab Captain Holmquist. I know he just popped out. I had a question. We're working on it.
Yeah.
Standby. All units in the air standby.
Right.
So this is just a random discussion. So Captain Holmquist is kind of in the background. He'll pop up to a microphone where Captain Vern Nelson's at. So we had talked about CAD-to-CAD and notification of messages and all that. And I was sitting here thinking about, hey, so I get text alerts, right, on active 911. And I was just wondering, like, where does that come from, right? And because one of the ways, at least incident commanders, and like a lot of folks are using their phones for stuff. I think back to CAD-to-CAD, before we had that line, some of the folks are using active 911 with, and seeing it like PG and stuff. Hey, that's my running order. So it just kind of, we were just interested in, like, from where does that data come? And then anything you want to expand on. So without a lot of technicality.
Right.
But,
So basically,
inquiring minds want to know.
right. And active 911 is very beneficial. Totally get it. It's basically set up on the back end of CAD that these third-party applications receive the CAD data without us interfering with that at all. It's an automatic process. So once the call is dispatched, that data is already captured in the background and sent to these third-party applications. So we don't have any interaction with it. It would have to be someone from Tech Ops actually logging in as an admin to send an individual active 911 alert that would be separate from a CAD dispatch. So everything that you're getting that's incident-based is an automatic send from CAD using third-party software. So it's just built into the background of CAD. Every time that F12 is pushed, which is our dispatch key, it's pushing that information to the active 911, which then parses it out to everyone's device.
Reliability-wise, not to put you in a corner, right? But when I look at the units on there, they should be correct, right? Unless Montgomery made a change afterwards, and there's no follow-up send, but that was captured at the time the dispatch. So if I see those units, just another way of double-checking myself, right? If we're in a command post and I say, hey, they put a RID out, can you look who's coming on the RID? And the person with me just pulls up their phone, and they could, well, that's who I think's coming, right? And
yes,
whatever.
It's just important to remember with the active 911 is it's essentially a snapshot at that point of dispatch time. So it's not like the CAD, which is a real-time updating platform, where if we change a unit on the CAD, or if we had the unit bidding and we switched it, or maybe somebody was on a detail that we didn't have captured in CAD. So there's all those different things that
you know what? That happened the other night because at the 25 or Corona, right? Corona Court, where 16's truck got added to the RID afterwards because the squad didn't go.
Right.
Right. So if you just looked at the RID dispatch, you wouldn't have known that 16 went unless because there was never another update on the RID.
So there would be another push
somewhere
from the CAD to the third-party vendor. The problem is if your actual active 911 application is only set to capture, say, the RID notification, it's not going to push. But Truck 16, if those folks have Truck 16 selected in their application, they got the active 911 push. Right. So the active 911 push is going every time that F12 is selected. It's just what devices are receiving it. It can be an issue, and then it's also just a snapshot. It's not going to be a real-time updating thing. Still very, very beneficial.
Right. So I mean, you talk about double checking yourself, verify, check twice, whatever.
Sure.
MDT, other sources that you got. So
yeah.
All right. Cool. Thanks.
Yes, sir.
Congratulations there on your promotion.
Thank you.
Yep. The Inquisition later.
Right.
Chief Thomas, anything? Any question stuff?
All right, yeah, there's a few questions on here. This one question regarding this my 3 words thing. I think that's probably worth pushing out there, even though it was addressed by Lieutenant Dant. Question is there still a pushback or resistance to using my 3 words to assist responding units with finding a incident, especially on a river or rural incidents? If so, why?
I think the what 3 words is an app,
Right.
right?
It is. Yep.
So if you don't have the app, it's not going to be beneficial. But we've had people on a river incident call and ask for the what 3 words, and they were able to use that to find the victim. So
Okay.
I know it's very useful, but I guess
Do you guys have it up here?
that's part of Rapid SOS.
I got you.
Yeah.
Right.
And
And I thought, although this is just right, fourth-hand information, right, that there was some move to get it into kind of like OnStar, but I want to say Mercedes, right? That Mercedes bought or used my 3 word or what 3 words for their vehicle locator. I don't know, but I thought, right? You get OnStar, you get
Yeah.
OnStar. So it's like, I only know that, right? Because I went to dim. I don't know why, because it automatic dims, but my rear view mirror, right? I'm driving out Interstate 70 in the middle of, I don't know, Allegheny County or Washington County, whatever. I hit the wrong button. It says 911. I don't pay for it. I figured, oh, nothing. Next thing you know, I'm talking to a 911 dispatcher going across Interstate 70 in like February, and I'm like, and and they know exactly where I'm located, right? I was impressed. I figured like, hey, they're not going to know. And I explained. He says, "Do you have an emergency?" I go, "No." He says, "Are you on Interstate 70 westbound at this exit?" I'm like, "Yeah, I am."
Mm-hmm.
So that happens here, right?
Yeah. Yeah, we had one. It was Annapolis Rock Road and 108. Late at night on a weekend, the guy was driving down Annapolis Rock and blew through the stop sign there, I guess, and went into the woods. And they called and said, we got an accident notification at Annapolis Rock and 108, but he or she is in the woods there, it looks like. And 17 got there, and sure enough, exactly where the car was.
So where they call on, like the same phone that we call on, or?
Yeah, they probably call we have a 10-digit 911 number. It's what the alarm companies use
Gotcha.
when they call in a fire alarm.
All right.
Right. And I think there is one of the videos does go over a little bit over Rapid SOS, and that is definitely very, very valuable when you talk about the river. It's been very helpful. We can watch on the Rapid SOS map, literally, if it's a lost hiker, and we can say, start walking towards the left, and we can see which way they're going, so we
Oh,
can tell the
cool.
units responding, hey, this is,
Put your hand up in the air.
yes, exactly.
Yep.
Any other? I think we got some other stuff. I'm not monitoring.
Yeah,
quick.
so
what
real
we got?
quick, Ian mentioned, is WTW, is that the same as that my 3 words? That's the same thing? Okay. All right,
What-
there's another question in here about software and dispatching. Let me find it real quick. All right, why can't the software dispatch, I just moved up, hold on a second, I'm sorry. Why can't the software dispatch the brush engines on known outside fires in woods, et cetera? If
What's
that
the
came across.
question?
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
what-
they're not.
Yes, they're asking a
yeah.
response plan, right?
If they ask for one, we can dispatch it, but they're not part of the brush fire response package.
Okay, I think that answers that.
It's like a specialty unit, like a brush truck. If they need one, they call for one, we'll dispatch it.
Another question. Speaking to the threshold for mutual aid, are there only a certain amount of tankers allowed to go out of the county?
Uh,
I don't know if that's a do.
I mean,
The
I don't.
doc makes that call, right?
Yeah, I think
Communicate with them.
the most is 3. I want to say, but I'm not sure if I would send that many. But it all depends what's going on at the time.
Yeah, I think there's some communication, at least through the dog. We've talked about this a little bit, not with ECC, but in the operations part about like, hey, you know, so the adjoining jurisdiction asks for 5 tankers, and well, how far away is it? A half a mile across the county line, right? Or is it 19 miles into the jurisdiction? And I want to say at the end of the day, the dock has that discretion, right, kind of as to what we're willing to send, right? And then that brush engine thing, I do know that we've had just some casual discussion operationally about, hey, we do have 4 brush engines. What do we do with them on these woods fires? You know, big woods fire, small woods fire, brush fire, whatever. Right now, it's the company officer's discretion to take it. I don't work at those stations. I don't know. I would think that if I'm working, it's just me, right? If I'm working at a firehouse that has a brush engine and I get dispatched on a large woods fire, which is a call type, I would think I would just take the brush engine. But I don't know. So there's some discussion about that, and to answer that person's question a little better, right? It's every call type does have a response plan, right? So when you type in whatever call that is, it tells you how many of what to send, and it picks it, and you verify it, and it goes, and you don't change that stuff unless they tell you I'm taking something different.
Correct.
So it would have to be a change in that response plan, right? It would have to be folks to say, yes, on this type of fire, you're going to take a brush engine instead. It would be loaded, right? It would be loaded in there, just like a truck is loaded instead of a rescue squad, right? In some applications.
Yep.
What else? Any others coming in there?
Nothing.
Man, a lot of people typing today.
Yeah. It's just some people in there answering some of the questions.
Yep, that's all good.
So we're just going to go over welfare versus status checks. So welfare checks is more based on elapsed time on scene. It's measured by a unit timer, and it's kind of to verify a unit's safety. Obviously, if, say, ambulance 701 welfare check, if they've been on the scene for an extended period of time, usually 20 minutes plus, we just want to check to make sure everything is okay. You know, they might be getting a refusal, which they'll tell us. They'll say, yeah, we're getting ready to go in service. So it's just really to verify their safety. A status check is based on time and current status, including en route, transporting, transport arrived. Same thing, it's measured by a unit timer. Same thing, we just want to find out what's going on. If it took you 15 minutes to get to a call that's around the corner, we want to know why.
And that timer for the welfare check, that starts when you arrive on the scene.
Yes.
Correct.
Yep.
Is that something you do, or it's automatic? Does the 7 Alpha 1 person start that timer? Or
No,
is it
it's
built in?
built into the
You have
CAD.
to make it go away.
Right. We
You
can
have to turn it off. You
Right,
have to
we have-
reset it or something.
Reset
correct.
it, yep.
Correct.
Gotcha.
Yes. So if you don't answer your welfare check, we're going to poll 2 times on both channels, 7 Alpha 1, 7 Alpha 2. If we don't hear from you, we're going to send a heavy piece of apparatus to the dispatch location, or if we can find out we do have a command to find your location. We'll also try to call the address that we dispatched you to. And obviously, we're going to contact the station to see if there's somebody on the ambulance or the piece of missing apparatus that we can get a hold of.
And I want to go back to that welfare check, right? I'm going to tell the folks out there that your battalion chiefs are listening to you, right? When we're awake, we can't listen to you when we're asleep. Just making sure that you answer. Today was a prime example this morning, I don't know, 9:30 or whatever. 16 goes on a call to help the cops, the ambulance, right? And you look at the call type and you see it's an MO running in the street. They call for a ALS response to help with sedation or whatever, right? So that's just a little wacky. This person's running in the street. And so when you hear the dispatcher call, when I hear Montgomery, right, calling ambulance 716, checking your welfare, no response. The ALS user, no response. I'm looking as the battalion chief. I happen to be in office. I'm looking at the call type. Let's just see what happens, right? I'm just a few steps away from marking up or saying send a fire truck or something to check on these people because the scene doesn't seem stable.
Thank-
Other times, right, so I'll just use my battalion again, you could be checking on ambulance 701 at the Elizabeth House. They went for a sick person, right? They're in a high rise.
Right.
Their radio may not be working very well, or that, or it could be turned down, right? So, folks out there, I will tell you that most of the chief officers are listening when they can on that radio, and it's important to answer back, simply because of the way things have changed recently, right? And a lot of bad things happening out there in the potential. So they're not, Montgomery is not calling you just to have something to do. They want
Right.
to make sure you're okay. It's for
Exactly.
their benefit, right?
Right.
So it kind of goes back to welfare versus status check. A lot of times also when we're doing a status check, I think as Tina had mentioned in the video, when we ask you, we already know where you are unless your MDT is not working. And a lot
And
of
when
times,
Chief Davis asks you, he also knows where
Yes.
you are.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
so, and that's when we are,
Trust
a lot of times if you're, whatever, you're stopping to get lunch or you need to use the restroom and you're still status at the hospital, we don't keep checking on you because we're trying to be difficult. It's because we're probably limited resources and we really need somebody to cut loose from the hospital to take the next EMS call. So it's not Big Brother watching if we keep asking your status because we need you to go back into service.
Yeah, definitely. So basically, when it's kind of like a good lawyer will never ask a question that he or she doesn't already know the answer to.
All right.
So when we call you and we say we're checking your status, we already know where you are. We know you've cleared the hospital, and we want you to do the right thing, which is to status your unit available. So we will. That's our way of trying to get you to do the right thing.
Yeah, right. And we totally understand that you could forget, right? Oh, I forgot, I'm tired. It's our 5th run of the day. Haven't eaten lunch yet. Still in my PT clothes. I forgot the status of the darn thing, right? And then there are a few occasions, right, where there's folks, it's pretty clear, that are not trying to status AOR. So, right, we would not want to make that a mandatory thing, right? Some kind of, hey, it's like the shopping cart that leaves the grocery store and suddenly you can't move it, right?
Right.
So you suddenly leave the hospital and boom, you're available, right?
Right.
The human being still has the right to have the judgment about, hey, I got to get some things done or whatever. Right? All right, cool.
Cool. You guys want to go to the next video?
I'm not going to change their status on their own because I don't know what they're doing. Maybe they're still finishing a report. Maybe they need to restock. I am going to question it. I'm going to call them out and ask them what's going on. But I'm not going to change their status. The only ones that don't work with us is if you have a medic on board, I'm sorry. Now you have an ambulance with a medic on board. You're still available, unfortunately, to us. But I'm never going to completely change your status. That is something that is more a supervisory job. I might have a supervisor behind me that says, no, they're available now, put them on. But for the most part, we leave you alone until you give us the correct status.
So in this instance, we just tracked him on 7-Eleven, and they're on Goldsboro Road, so we'll just check with them and see what their status is.
Because they're obviously not at the hospital anymore, but that doesn't mean that they're not.
Anybody on 7-Eleven checking their status.
And this is where we say, listen to your radios, because all you'd have to do is tell us what's going on, and then we'll leave you alone. Travis will try a couple times. If it doesn't work, then our Alpha 2 operator will try.
They just use their MDC to go delayed leaving hospital, and now they're AOR.
There you go.
All right. So enough said about that, but right, but number one, the whole COVID thing and the demand placed on our EMS resources really have brought this to light, right? If we were sitting here 10 years ago, we wouldn't be talking about any of this. But
Right.
just the demand on resources, all that stuff, right, going back and forth across mutual aid borders, all those things. So for the folks out there, we really need you to status appropriately. And by the way, we already know where you're located, right? So just make it happen.
And there's like this morning was a good example. I had, excuse me, I didn't have a transport unit available north of Station 8.
Wow.
Not one.
Wow.
So my eyes were on Shady Grove. My eyes were on Holy Cross, Germantown. And as soon as we can see you, so as soon as I see a unit leaving the driveway of the hospital, we're calling you to get you back in service.
In all fairness, then also from the battalion chief, and we also heard this a little bit from the EMS duty officer, right? If you need to be held on the call for a reason, right, then be clear about it, right? There are times, right? I was a medic, right? There are times when you got to be held because of X, Y, Z. So I think we want to talk about that, right?
Yep.
Correct. So the next topic is hold me on the call. What are some reasons that a unit should be held on a call? Or so I'm on 7 Alpha 1, Montgomery to ambulance 701, checking your correct status. Their response will be hold me on the call for decon, hold me on the call for restock. Okay, no problem. What are some reasons that units are not held on a call? Returning a medic to their assigned station is not a reason for a unit to be held on a call. If that unit is available, and they are available, obviously if they're available to run a call, they should be AOR or DLH. And
right.
So returning to, like I said, returning a medic to their first due area is not a reason. In all instances, the correct status should be AOR in your battalion.
Right.
So,
and that's not, excuse me, that's not an ECC thing. That's a fire chief general order thing.
Right. It is, right.
So that's not coming from us. That's coming from the fire chief.
Right. Okay. What's next?
Condition red. Lauren, you want to talk about condition red?
So this is mainly used in severe weather. Although I think C-Shift went to condition red the other day when they had the 2 rural house fires. Okay. But it's basically when we are out of our resources can't keep up with the demand of the call load. So I can declare condition red, and then basically I can downgrade assignments. I can send an ambulance to a wires down call if I have to. It's just
Do you have to consult with the doc before you go to condition red? It says you have that authority, like, hey, we've met the criteria, we're going to condition red.
I mean, I call the doc.
Yes.
Yeah.
But you're not saying, hey, can I go on condition red?
No, I can make that decision, but
Gotcha.
and then I'll call the doc and
Right.
let him know.
And then 8 people call you, why are we on condition red?
Basically,
Right. That's all right.
yeah, because
It's the fire department.
there's
right?
times there,
Yes.
you're in station 12 eating dinner and it's sunny
Yeah.
outside, and we go to condition red, and you're like, what the heck's going on? Well, a bad storm just went through Damascus and Laytonsville, and there's
Right.
10 water calls, and we don't have enough resources to send all 10 water calls. So I have to go on condition red in order to downgrade those responses.
All right.
And then just keep the phone calls to a minimum when we're on condition red. Of course, if it's an emergency, give us a call, but if it can wait, just let it wait.
All right.
Let's see, direct line, field request, transmit routine will be declined. And then in coordination with the doc, apparatus may be directed to return to quarters from a detail. So that's condition red in a nutshell.
Gotcha.
Okay. You want to go back to the next question?
We cannot resend the call to your MDC without completely taking the call down and redispatching the call. So no, if you don't get the information the first time, you are not going to get the information. Unfortunately, you can call us up and we can give you all the information you need, but once that call is sent and you're on the initial dispatch, there is no resend to my MDC.
So at 2 a.m. when you go out to the unit, even a fire engine or a ladder truck, and there says connection lost, and they're running the box alarm, the officer in that seat just needs to know.
You're going old school.
You're going verbal.
You're going old school and you're going verbal,
Right,
and
the
we will give you
address.
whatever information you need. You can even switch over if you feel like it's too hectic on the channel. Ask to switch over to a talk group, 7 up to 12. We'll give you whatever information you need. We're here to help you, but there's no way for me to resend a call to you, unfortunately, without completely taking the call down and putting you back on it. And on that aspect, don't reboot your MDTs in the middle of calls. That doesn't work either. You're going to lose all of your information. Wait until after your call to reboot. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. It's not going to finish your call out and then reboot.
Right, so no, can you send it to my MCC, right?
Right.
Basically. So,
It's just no guarantee that, even if they're requesting it to get it to their, for it to be resent to their MDC, they're having MDC issues, and we resend it, it's still no guarantee they're going to get it the second time.
yeah, and I guess that complicates matters because I think another scenario would be I accidentally hit AOR instead of on scene, right? And that wipes me out also, right?
If there's
It's
a,
a single unit response.
Yeah, we used to have that issue, but I think that was taken care of with this new system because when you push AOR, you have to type in a disposition code
Oh,
Right, SB, yeah, you,
before you can
Yeah.
totally clear yourself. But we do add ECC markers to single unit responses.
correct.
It's like a phantom unit. It'll hold the call open in case you accidentally hit AOR and clear yourself.
because then that also would impact EPCR, right? Because doesn't that data go over,
Mm-hmm.
right? Shows like your times and all that. So if you've cleared yourself, that gets you jacked up there as well, right?
Correct.
Gotcha. So the shorter answer is no, we can't really send it to your MDC.
Right.
Very complicated if we had to,
If
and it may not work.
I mean,
So-
it's really not complicated for us.
Right.
I think, it can happen, like Captain discussed earlier. It can happen, but it's just, like I said, it's just no guarantee that you're going to get it on your MDC. And then, like he's
Right.
said earlier, now you got 2 reports to do.
Right.
So, it can happen.
Okay. All right,
okay.
next.
Just moving on, we touch base about scene security. I know we've had a lot of calls where we're letting units know that scene is not secure. So basically, it's for an incident that involves violence or potential threat or harm to responding units. We have a variety of call types: pole assist, pole hold, involving violence, unknown, just an unknown situation. So obviously, we want you to let us know your staging location, and we are going to give you all the updates that we can once we know that the scene is actually secure.
Mm-hmm.
You guys got anything to talk about on that?
I guess we're not telling you to stage. I think I've heard people tell units to stage.
Right.
We just give you the information that we have and let you know the scene isn't secure. If you if you want to stage, that's your decision. If you want to go in, that's your decision as well. But we're just giving you the information.
I think what's really valuable is to look at the MDC comments,
Yes.
right?
Mhm.
Because if it's a
Messages.
joint fire police call, you're seeing the police comments as well, right?
Right.
And make some judgments off of that. I mean, that's what I look at when I'm trying to see, like, hey, somebody's going on a shooting one, right? ALS1 shooting. Hey, what's going on? Let's see if the cops are saying. Can I listen up on the police channel? What do the comments say, right? So, like this morning on this call I was talking about, right? It's pretty clear the patient that they went for is not at the address that was dispatched, and they are out running in the street, and there seems to be some chaos. Hold on a minute. Let's back off on that for a second. So, the ability, number one, make sure your MDC is working, and number two, look at those comments when you're talking about scene security issues. Right? And just because it's not always secure.
True. And also, there's some instances where the call is being updated, but it's not being updated as a priority comment.
Right.
Just like this morning, we had 2 calls where the call was updated. There was a call in one's area. Medic 701 got on the scene and said, "Montgomery, did you see the comment
About the second
about
patient.
the second
Right,
patient
right.
and sending ALS?" We didn't see it because it didn't come in as a priority comment. The difference between, if it comes in as a priority comment, we're going to get an alert
Gotcha.
It turns red and it sticks out, and we're going to see it. I mean, if we got calls stacked up on the screen, we can't monitor every call.
Right.
Eventually we do, but
right. Yeah.
so
it is like as with anything, right? Once you're dispatched on a call, it is the responsibility of whoever's in charge of that unit to monitor what the heck's going on, right? You're going to try to provide them the best info you can, and in a lot of the boss talks we've had about incidents, right, talking about info that they got on the MDT.
right.
The unit officer, I was going down the street. This is what I saw. I saw the comments were updated and just that kind of stuff, right? So
Right.
from your perspective, you guys are doing a good job of getting comments in there. It's on the responsibility of that unit officer to pay attention to that MDC, to look at those comments, right?
Right.
Right.
Well,
And verbalize. Right?
yeah, they need to be
Right.
verbalized as well, because I know when I'm going down the road, the engine is bouncing up and down. My face is in the map book. I'm not looking necessarily at the comments on the MDC, so we should be, especially on a tactical talk group channel, because that operator just has that one call in front of them. So if there's something that's important that needs to be relayed, that needs to be relayed over the radio.
Okay.
Right, and just to reiterate back on to scene security, when you were saying number 3 would also be, especially if it's a heavy piece of apparatus, that someone can turn over and listen to the police channel, because that is, there's a lot of information given there.
Yep.
Do you gentlemen want to talk about signal 3?
Yeah, sure. So, in my opinion, this isn't used enough, because we've had multiple incidents in the past where a crew will say, send the police emergency. And then in the background, you can hear the provider fighting with the patient in the back of the unit. Yeah, that's a signal 3. So a lot of times, I can't speak for B and C shift, but I have sent a signal 3 even though it wasn't called for, just based on
We know
situational awareness, and I'm like, that just doesn't sound right to me. So I've sent a signal 3 even though it wasn't called. Don't be afraid.
it's kind of tied to Mayday, right? If you look at some of the stuff that people would, not necessarily us, right? But why wasn't the Mayday called, especially a single person? They didn't want to be the person that called the Mayday, and it wasn't, right? A good friend of mine, chief officer up in 31's area, was pinned against a wall by some drywall, could not move by himself in a fire, right? But not in a danger area. Got himself out, and he said, at the end of it, I should have called a Mayday, but I didn't want to call Mayday just on something like that. And I think that also is part of it, right? I don't want to be the person that calls Signal 3 and why'd you call the police? You couldn't handle it.
Right. But the thing is, the police send Signal 13s all the time.
Yes, right.
They send
you
them
don't answer
all the
the radio
time.
twice, you're getting a Signal 3.
Right.
Don't,
I mean 13, right?
Do not be afraid to call a Signal 3 if you think you're about ready to get into a fight with somebody.
Yep.
So there's also a silent Signal 3 where if you just hit your EB button, we'll challenge you a couple times on both channels, and if we don't get a response, we're going to send out a Signal 3. And then you go back one.
Mm-hmm.
Maria.
Yep.
So we'll create a call, SIG-3 FRS, and that's going to get you the closest heavy, ALS-1, transport unit, battalion chief, and all of the command staff notifications. And that creates a dual call type Signal 3 for the police. And the only thing we're going to do, if you call us with a Signal 3, we're just going to acknowledge you. Okay, we heard you. We're not going to try to talk to you about, because it drives me crazy. I've sent these before, and the police supervisor will come over and they'll ask, they want to know,
Right.
are there any weapons? Do you have a suspect descriptions? Like, no, we're not. They call
Right,
a Signal.
somebody's in trouble.
Right, they call a Signal 3 that they're in trouble. We're not going to reach out to them anymore. So, yeah.
Okay. questions?
What else? Is that it for our questions?
Yep, I think. Well, we're talking about upgrades and downgrades. I think we have another, I think we have two
Got a
videos.
few in the queue here.
Got a couple in queue. Let's go through the videos, and then we'll catch these couple in queue here as we
All right.
start to close out.
Okay, so for this particular call, we have an overdose on lost knife. So I'll check the address and check the person who's making the phone call. Based on that phone number, I can look up the Rapid SOS to the location based upon the phone number, and then I'll click on that particular call, which then places the call in the location that the caller is at. So all these little red dots that are on this Rapid SOS are the location that the individual holding the phone is calling from. So they're actually walking around right here. The last known location is actually the green dot that's here. That shows specifically where they are. Oftentimes on major incidents, we'll screenshot this and send it to a Sonim phone, particularly down at the river, so that units can verify via landmarks that they may know. It's very useful in those types of situations, as well as in any call that the units are having difficulty finding the patient.
So we hear a lot of SOS stuff now these days, I guess, right? Even a few years ago, that would have been a pretty foreign term, but now we commonly hear rapid SOS, the dispatcher talk about rapid SOS says, or points the patient at. And seems to be pretty spot on, right?
But we use it all the time.
Yeah.
I know I have it up all the time. I'm scanning it constantly. Another example of that was we sent eight out for a, I think it was a fire call, oven fire or something, and it was a language barrier. And if you listen to the call, the lady was saying 158 Water Street. So the call taker sent it to 158 Water Street, and then 8 said that's not a good address. So I looked up the Rapid SOS via the phone number,
Right.
and it was hitting right on top of number 15A Alpha, Water Street.
Gotcha.
I think it was Water Street.
That sounds
But
right.
was it Water Street? Water Street. So based on the Rapid SOS alone, we were able to reroute them to the correct address. Otherwise, we have to call the number back, get a Spanish interpreter on the line, and then go through all that process again, which would have taken up a lot of time.
Right. All right. What else you got?
Vern, do you want to talk about supervisors have the
Oh, yeah.
ability to upgrade and downgrade a call? So it's based on supervisor discretion, can be based on the notes in the actual call that comes into pending. I just use as an example, why was it a full assignment and now it's an adaptive response?
Right. That's when I'm running through the door to the apparatus bay, starting my car up, and I'm like, well, I'm not even due. And then I see it's like a 2-in-1 response. Like,
Yeah, do you want to talk about the call that I messed up on?
no, that's, occasionally it happens the other way, not too
yeah,
often,
so-
but it's okay. So this this we prompted this summary. This is true all call types, right? Because initially you may see POL assist, and then it may change to like MO, and then that all call may change to 2 or 3 times by the time you actually status and route, right?
Right. So it's based on the comments that the call taker has put into the call,
Which is not you.
No.
which is not us.
Yes,
It's
right.
coming from the call taker. So there's a lot of times we'll upgrade a BLS call to an ALS call. So that's ALS1, upgrade ALS1.
Gotcha.
We'll upgrade a 2-in-1 response to a box, U box. Then on the flip side of that, we can downgrade a box to an adaptive based on the comments in the call. So we know that an oven fire, that's the common one. It comes over as a
Yeah,
house
see
fire,
that,
but
yes,
if
right.
you look in the comments, it says fire in the oven. So what happened was the call taker clicked the wrong thing in the EFD protocol,
Gotcha.
which created the house fire instead of the appliance fire. So we look at that. We can downgrade that to a 2-in-1. Light smoke in structures other than high rise or high life hazard, that's a 2-in-1 response for light smoke.
Gotcha.
So based on the comment, if it says light smoke can see through it, we're going to downgrade that to a 2-in-1.
So I guess, right, I think for folks in the field, right, so the goal was not to delay the dispatch of a call. And when you're in the firehouse and you see that populate, that's from the initial, it came over to fire, right?
Yes.
And somebody's digging further into that, most likely, potentially, right? Looking at it further and realizing that it could change, whether it's an EMS or a service call or a fire call, it doesn't matter, right? Just understand that it may have changed, and it wasn't because somebody spun the magic wheel and said, well, it's going to be this time. No,
Right.
based on additional information taken from the call taker or communications with other folks, you picked the most appropriate call type based on info. So, and that's going to be right most of the time. There'll be those times when, well, it just wasn't, but we did the best we could with the info we had. Right?
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And Chief Davis calls you on the phone and says there was fire coming out of the top of
Right.
that house.
This joint
It was light smoke on
Yes.
the first floor. Light smoke on the first floor. Problem was the second floor was on
Right.
fire.
Yeah, I can't remember what that. I think the
I don't know.
caller
It was kind of wacky, right?
the caller was looking at it from across the street
Yep,
and said
right.
the house might be on fire or something. So I downgraded it, and they got there with fire showing. So
It's okay.
you
We did not go.
Right.
Right? You did not go. We
Yeah,
sent somebody.
we sent 2-in-1s are good enough to get a start on it.
Right. So I want to try to wrap this up some. If you want to talk about your last slide
Sure.
quickly.
Sure.
And then we'll see if there's any questions left from the field. I want to try to hold to the 90 minutes. We got about
Gotcha.
5 minutes to wrap it up and see. I think there's been a lot of good discussion on the chat. If you had not signed in on the chat, man, sign in on it now, so at least you get a copy to see what happened on the chat. So go.
Sure. So just last slide, just to update some folks. I think that Captain Nelson touched on this very briefly. A lot of people do not know, uniform folks, we do not answer the 911 call at all. We are not licensed in EMD or EFD anymore, so we are not allowed to answer the 911 any longer. So consolidation is occurring. It was mandated by the county executive. Montgomery County Fire Rescue, Montgomery County Police will working jointly to consolidate ECC operations under Montgomery County Police. February of 2020 is when the call takers assumed all 911 duties. July 2021 was the first radio class for Montgomery County Police started. It's a joint and ongoing training. Training is active and ongoing. In 2024, transition to civilian fire rescue dispatchers is a possible projected date.
Gotcha. So we've talked about this a long time, right? People kept pulse on this. This has been a long process. Talked about probably 10 years easily, I think, at this point. So, yeah. Chief Thomas, any questions at the end, statements, stuff you want to clarify? We've got a couple minutes to wrap this up.
Yeah, I'll try to make this quick. I got a couple. Some of them have already been addressed by Lieutenant Danton, a few others. One question, can the information sent to the Sonam phones be added to the MDC as well? Some of the volunteer chiefs and some apparatus don't have Sonam phones and are not able to get the information unless they ask for it.
I don't know. I'm not sure.
That's probably a tech ops question.
Right.
Yeah.
Kind of, right?
Okay. Lieutenant Dant mentioned on here, photos cannot be sent to the CAD or added to the MDC. Other text information can be added to the call for MDC viewing. So I guess that has to be added in manually. Another interesting question here. Can you add the police channel into the CAD when dispatched, when fire rescue is dispatched? Many stations are on the border of police districts, and it would be nice to know what channel to monitor, which police channel to monitor. So I don't know if you guys get any of that information at the time you dispatch calls.
We can see what district is responding, but I don't know what the radio channels are.
Normally get into or something that we normally do on a regular basis.
Okay. All right. The last question was already answered. If you get an EB activation from two different portables on the same incident within seconds of each other, does it count as verification, or will you still check their status?
experience.
I would check. I would check. You always want to verify. I wouldn't ignore an EB status.
So you're saying you would check them individually?
Yes.
Yep. Okay. Yep.
Yeah.
That's all. That's all.
2 minutes, minute and a half. Any parting words?
We just wanted to show you guys a form on quick links. If you go to
Oh, right.
the quick links page and you go to operations division, you go down to the communications center section, click on there, and then if you scroll down a little bit, there is an ECC feedback form. So I know a lot of times you guys have questions, maybe about a particular incident that you ran that you thought maybe should have been BLS, but you got sent ALS, or we sent you for 2-in-1 or an automatic
Right.
fire alarm. This is the form. If you can just fill it out with the incident number, give a brief description, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. Obviously, it might not be the same day, but it's not. We will address the issue.
I don't think anybody would ever question you, would they?
Never.
Do you mind? You mind running into that one more time? I'm a slow reader. You got to go back to the beginning.
Yep. So it's quick links, and it's under
So
operations
we're looking
division.
for the ECC,
So go to operations.
feedback form,
Yep. You
right?
go under communications.
not a complaint form, feedback,
That's probably on there too.
right?
Yes. ECC
ECC
feedback. Yep.
There,
Yep.
there you go.
Yes.
Right.
Just ask the date, the incident number, the person that's submitting it, so we know who to respond
And for you
to.
out there, folks out there randomly doing this, understand there's probably more than one person that form goes to, right? So just be cognizant of what you're asking about.
Correct.
All right.
Yeah.
Anything else
Nope.
out there in YouTube land?
Yeah, I was
Thanks,
just,
all
I was
three.
going to say, if anyone has a question about something, just call me. If I'm not busy, I'll be more than happy to investigate a
Gotcha.
call and find out why you weren't due here or why you were due there. So I want to maintain a good relationship with the station officers out there.
Sure.
And a thank you to A, B, and C shift. Each shift did a little bit apart. B shift did the slideshow. C shift did our videos, and A shift we have Troy and the captain here. So thank you to all three shifts for helping out, putting this together.
Welcome.
So we allotted 90 minutes because we
We
knew
did.
it was an important topic, right? I learned so much today. I'm like, wow, I didn't know all that happened, right? I'm pretty impressed. And so each level as you move up, right, from the person just riding aid on the ambulance, you have some interaction. The company officer has a fair amount of more interaction, and then certainly command officer has a lot of interaction with communications. And there is a lot of stuff that happens on the other end of that microphone, right, that you're like, I don't know much about. And I thought the three of you, as well as the two shifts that prepared the other stuff, did a really good job today talking about this. We may have some questions. If folks think about questions later on, you want to email them in to myself or Chief Thomas, we'll get them out. Talk about another, what's coming up. We don't have a CITS planned yet for March. Still working on a topic for that. We do want to, we're going to release a pilot of a new series, and that is going to be called From the Command Post. And what that's going to be is very similar to the Boss Talk, but it's going to be related to incident commanders talking about a incident or a couple of incidents, and that is going to be slated for March 16th. Same time period. It'll have 90-minute allocation as well. March 16th, 1,300 hours. We're going to talk about a couple of incidents that were somewhat similar to each other, and it'll be command officers talking with a moderator geared toward the command officer, but folks are all welcome to watch it. So really, that's all we have from ECC. Appreciate everybody contributing. Thought you guys, folks, did a really good job. Thanks for taking time out.
Happy to be here.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
That's it. Till next time.